In San Diego and across California, students and teachers have been returning to in-person schooling with spirit and a requirement to wear masks indoors. Teachers and school staff are also required to be vaccinated for COVID-19 or submit to weekly testing. Those public health policies will likely change in California if Governor Gavin Newsom is recalled.
One need only look at states like Arizona, Georgia, and Florida for the role of a governor who's anti-science in dealing with the pandemic.
Sonia Diaz is a UCLA political science professor and founder of the Latino Policy and Politics Initiative. Most of the leading candidates to replace Newsom are Republicans who oppose statewide vaccine and mask mandates. And Diaz says while Newsom has been willing to increase state spending to deal with the pandemic, a Republican governor is likely to cut spending.
This means that we are not going to have the full arsenal of our government resources. Now, ultimately, this is really hard because we know who suffers when bad policy exists and continues to be manufactured. And that's Black and Brown communities who have borne the brunt of the health and wealth impacts of this pandemic.
And we know that California is a bellwether for other states.
UCSD political science professor Marissa Abrajano says if Republicans succeed in recalling Newsom and replacing him with one of their own, the effects could be felt across the country.
It could embolden Republican governors in other states and potentially other Republican statewide elected or national officials to continue with their policies, especially given the kind of polarized political environment that we currently live in.
It could also give a boost to Republican enthusiasm and fundraising efforts ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. Perhaps even more consequential, Dianne Feinstein is 88 and the oldest sitting senator. A Republican governor would almost certainly appoint a Republican to fill her seat if she couldn't finish her term. That would give Republicans their Senate majority back. And Diaz says even conservative appointments to state positions could change how California tackles housing, climate change, and education.
These appointments include cabinet positions. They also include positions around important boards and commissions, whether that's the Air Resources Board, the University of California's Board of Regents, but our state judiciary. So those are powers that you can see, from one day to the next shift.
What's unlikely to change with the Republican governor is legislation. Democrats still hold supermajorities in the state assembly and Senate, meaning they could pass laws and override a veto from the governor if they stay united. And Abrajano thinks they would.
I mean, they're even highly united right now, as we've seen, coalescing around Newsom, agreeing that other potential high-profile Democratic candidates not compete in the recall election. So you can imagine that if we are in that scenario, that they would be just as united or even more highly united.
Polling looks much better for Newsom now than it did just 1 month ago. So what if the recall fails and Newsom stays in office? He'll likely go into his 2022 re-election campaign even stronger, though Diaz says his margin of victory would matter a lot.
Is this within a 5-point margin? Is he going to hit it out of the park, which is more unlikely? To what extent is it going to be called that evening? We don't know.
And predicting the outcome is even harder now, given shifts in voting trends. Republicans used to prefer early voting, but now are more likely to vote on Election Day. Abrajano says a victory from Newsom could also force Republicans in California to do some soul-searching.
Or do they want to appeal to a larger base and revert back to a more moderate version of what Republicans are, or are they going to continue in their strategy of extreme right wing and kind of the party of Trump, essentially?
Abrajano and Diaz agree a Republican governor would face an all but impossible re-election campaign in 2022. That's because Republicans are such a minority in California, low turnout special elections are the only path they have to statewide victory. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.